At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello and welcome to the 1865 match report. And what a difference a win makes. Forest 3, Fulham 1. Forest taking a big step towards Premier League survival with a massive 3 points at the City Ground, following a really good display and a memorable evening's football, which I think everybody in attendance, apart from the Fulham fans, thoroughly enjoyed. Goals from Callum Hudson-Odoi, Chris Wood and Morgan Gibbs-White, all in the first half, were enough to see Forest get the win. Fulham did score a goal early in the second half, but that proved to be only a consolation in the end. It's Stephen here, and I'm joined by George to have a look back over this game and this Forest victory. George, we'll start with the team news. Forest made a couple of changes from the draw with Crystal Palace. So we had Omobamidele coming in for Felipe, Danilo coming in for Sangare, and Alanga for Origi. They were the headline moves. And I think overall, actually, the team selection was the right one. And it was a move towards the kind of team that the fans had been wanting to see from Nuno, particularly after what happened against Palace.
Yeah, it was a move to the team news that we expected from Nuno when he first came in, because that was the first thing that he did. He put Gibbs-White into the middle, he put two wingers, and we had Taiwo/Wood up front. And that was what made us look so threatening going forward when he came in. And then obviously we conceded sort of 4 goals to Villa, we conceded a lot to Newcastle, and he made a clear effort to try and shore it up. And you look at the last 4 games, a couple of 1-0 losses and a few 1-1s. There's a clear ploy there to try and be a bit more defensive. But I think we've always wanted to go back to this 4-2-3-1, 2 wingers, Gibbs-White behind, Wood up front. And it worked a treat. I mean, Felipe was always going to be dropped. It was an absolute liability at the weekend against Crystal Palace. He got better as the game went on. But I think, especially given his age, and I don't think he was even on the bench, was he? So it didn't surprise me that he was dropped. And I think it was always going to be who was going to come in. He's not favoured near Kate recently, so it was no surprise to see Omobamidele come in. And I think him and Murillo did do really well, because Forest, weren't going to have all of the ball, but Fulham going forward, particularly apart from set pieces, aren't much of an aerial side, and that's where Omobamidele maybe struggles. But I think he had the best pass percentage on the pitch, 96%. I think he only misplaced 2 passes. It was a really good selection. I think Sangare and Yates was a bit clunky. It maybe worked for Luton away, but Palace at home, when we had all of the ball, possibly wasn't the right selection. So I think there was always going to be one of them sacrificed, and many people wanted Dominguez, but Danilo came in and he was due a good performance, and my word, we'll talk about it. He was fantastic. So, I think Nuno got it absolutely spot on last night, and I've been critical of him recently, but I can't fault his selections last night.
It certainly made the difference. Forest looked a lot brighter from the off, and the opening minutes of the game were very end-to-end. Forest were looking a lot more threatening and a lot more cohesive than they did against Crystal Palace. And it was only 8 minutes in when Forest took the lead. And it was a nice goal, this one. The ball picked up by Morgan Gibbs-White, who actually, before we talk about the goal, let's mention the display before kickoff, Forza Garibaldi. And it was a picture of Gibbs-White with his fingers in his ear with the banner saying, block out the noise and focus on your game. It was a good display, wasn't it? And I think Gibbs-White saw it and was inspired by it.
Yeah, how much of Forest's good memories come under the lights at the City Ground? You think of all of those games, you think, last season, the Brighton, I likened it actually to the Brighton and Southampton games last season. They were under the lights. The Man United win this season, the playoff Sheffield United game. Only really Arsenal was in the day. And I know it's only a small factor, but it always seems to be under the lights at the City Ground. Forza Garibaldi, so much credit they deserve, because there's countless examples of their displays that have really spurred the lads on. And it gets the crowd and the players up. And I mean, that happened in abundance last night. It was a performance that we were expecting to see on Saturday against Crystal Palace and that didn't come. But the banner and the words just inspired the players. Gibbs-White more than any. You could see that from the minute he stepped onto that pitch. He was out on a mission to have a stunning performance. And it was like he was playing Wolves, because we always see that performance when he plays Wolves. But he was sensational. There was so much energy. It was a direct attacking performance. And that banner, it set the tone. And Forest, from seeing that banner, from a passionate Mull McIntyre, we kicked off and you knew that Forest had turned up from minute one.
And Gibbs-White's involvement in the opening goal, he picks the ball up in the centre circle, turns away from Palhinha and feeds an outside of the football to Callum Hudson-Odoi. He picks it up, carries it into the box, cuts inside and fires it into the bottom corner. A typical Callum Hudson-Odoi finish, this, actually. A really neat goal all round.
Yeah, it was. And it actually came a minute after Sells had made a good save from, was it Harry Wilson cutting inside? I'm not sure. But that was, a really good reaction from Forest, because they had started the better side, but then Fulham had the first real chance and they just fired straight back. I think it's Murillo actually who plays it into Gibbs-White, who was so good on the ball last night. I mean, we see his defensive dominance all the time, but he last night on the ball was superb, and we'll get onto the assist for Wood as well. And it's him who plays it into Gibbs-White. And, sometimes he'll try something like that and it doesn't come off. But when it does, it is sensational. And then Callum runs in on goal. I mean, I thought the chance was gone when he was on the left-hand side. I thought, just hit it with your left foot. But he cuts inside, he finishes it. And it's, he's responded really well, because when we signed Rayner, that really gave him a kick and he started playing well. I think it was Bournemouth away, he scored that goal and played really well. And then the manager seemingly strangely dropped him when he was in his best form for a couple of games. And I couldn't understand that. But he's responded to being dropped really well. And I think along with Gibbs-White, those two were our sort of two outstanding attacking players last night. He definitely deserved his goal and he's becoming an influential part in our attack.
And the stats back up his impact as well at Forest, because in 72 appearances at Chelsea, he scored 4 goals. In 22 appearances for Forest, he scored 5 goals, and that's in the Premier League. So it's great to see him starting to deliver an end product and doing it on a consistent basis.
Yeah, there was so much excitement about him as a young lad. I think he was rumoured to go for Bayern Munich for 50 million, and Chelsea was so excited. And then he went quiet, went on a few loan spells to Serie A. But there's always been a player in there. And I think he's just waited to be around players like Gibbs-White, Elanga and Wood, and maybe to have a manager like Nuno to bring the best out of him, because we've always known there's a player there. And even at the start of the season when he wasn't in form, we were frustrated because we knew he had the ability. He just didn't seem to have the courage to back himself, to cut inside and shoot like that. He'd always play the safe option. So, I think he's been a revelation and exactly what we want to see from him.
And he almost made it 2-0 a couple of minutes later. And it was the move started with Chris Wood. He won a flick on with his head. Gibbs-White then flicked it over Adebayo and ran forward, played it to Hudson-Odoi. This time he tries again to cut onto his right foot and shoot, but Bernd Leno comes out, smothers the shot, and the ball goes away to safety. But it was only a couple of minutes later that Forest doubled their lead, and it starts with Danilo. He plays the ball to Chris Wood, collects it on a turn. He spots a gap and shoots from 25 yards. Leno's off balance and can't get there. He's going the wrong way. The ball nestles in the bottom corner of the net. And it's a brilliant opportunist goal from Chris Wood.
Chris Wood scoring from outside the box. Wow, you must know that he's in form. Honestly, the confidence that he's got at the minute is outstanding. And the goal epitomises how he's feeling, the fact that he thinks he can take something on like that. And so many times, particularly in the Palace game or games like that, when we have loads of possession, we get in some good areas and don't shoot. And that was an occasion where even he was a bit too far out, but he just lets go because of the start the team have had. They all feel so confident. They're backing each other and they're just confident in themselves. Chris Wood, I mean, Gibbs-White takes the headlines, and rightly so, because he was fabulous. But Chris Wood's up there with man of the match as well. He won pretty much every header against two centre-backs that were at least 2 inches taller than him. He gets the flick on for that Hudson-Odoi chance we've just mentioned. And then he scores this goal. He sees Leno off his line. And Leno's a really top keeper. You saw that by how he saved Hudson-Odoi, and he's up there, this season, I'm sure, in the stats. But he sees him, wandering and just punishes him clinically. He had no chance with that. He's got a 43% conversion rate in the Premier League at the minute and 8 goals in 9 Premier League games. I personally don't think Taiwo Awoniyi would make the team at the minute. And that is probably the biggest bit of praise I can give to him, because we all know that Taiwo is basically our attack when he plays. But Chris Wood at the minute, he is just fabulous. And that £50 million that everyone was moaning at that we signed him for looks like an absolute bargain at the minute.
I don't think anyone would argue with that, George. He's in great form, and it's good to see him actually starting to show his best in a Forest shirt, because when he first came in, I don't think he was fully fit. The team was not in the best of form, and it was not the best environment for him to come in and really show what he can do. But certainly this season, he's proving his worth. And yeah, that 50 million now looks like money well spent. By this point in the game, Forest were all over Fulham in terms of using the ball, passing it around and looking good in possession, but also working hard, covering loads of ground. There was a commitment and tenacity in Forest performance, but also a lot of quality on the ball. Another big chance came along about 25 minutes in. Gibbs-White's involved again. He exchanges passes with Alanga. Alanga breaks into the box, has a shot, and it just clips the outside of the post and goes away. At that point, Forest would have been 3-0 up and absolutely cruising, and would have been good value for it.
Yeah, 100%. They would have merited being 3-0 up. And in all honesty, it could have been 5 or 6 at half time. We scored just before the break that we're going on to. But Forest was so good. And that's what I like about Forest. Growing up, we've never really been a possession-based team. And you see that's the way everyone wants to play at the minute. But I like when we're direct, not lumping it long to Wood and stuff, which we had to do at times yesterday. But when we get the ball and we look forward and we have runners, we have movement, and we just play it forward. It's energetic, it's exciting. And for me, it's everything that I think Nottingham Forest should stand for. We're a working class city. We want graft, we want grit, we want determination, and we want end product. And last night, yes, Elanga hit the post and missed that. But, we got that in abundance, and it was a perfect performance. I mean, you look at the stats and Fulham would have had more possession, I'm sure, but it didn't feel like that because Fulham's possession was sideways and backwards. Whereas whenever Forest got the ball, you just knew they could create something and something could happen. So by the end, I think we had 33%, they had 67%. But it didn't feel like that because it felt like Forest were the team that were imposing themselves on the game. And you could tell the difference between the sides, that this was a game Forest knew they had to win, and they were playing a Fulham side that, in all honesty, didn't have much to play for. I think that shone through throughout the game.
Such was Forest's domination in that first half that on 33 minutes, Marco Silva made a triple change. So he brought off Sasa Lukic, Alex Iwobi, and to Forest fans' enjoyment, Harry Wilson. He got a warm reception as he came off the pitch. And on came Tom Kearney, Adama Traore, and Willian. And it's not often that you see any manager making a triple sub 30 minutes into a game. I think it was the first time since 2009 that had happened in a Premier League game. Forest was so on top and looking so good at that point. And to be fair, those substitutions did work for Fulham in so much that they got a bit more on the ball and looked more solid as a result.
Yeah, there was a 10-minute period following the subs where Fulham were arguably on top. And it just shows how well Forest were doing, because 2-0 down after 33 minutes, I mean, it's not the best situation, but it's certainly not the worst. But the changes happened because of the manner of how Fulham were playing. Like we've mentioned, Forest were outstanding, but Fulham didn't look like a threat defensively. they were looking okay, but Forest were just tearing them apart whenever they got the ball. And I think what showed it was they brought on who played on the right wing? Willian on the right, was it? No, Traore. Traore. And I was a bit worried about that because he seems to play well against us. But Traore came on and Aina was the left back. And as soon as he got the ball, literally about 20 seconds after coming on, Aina harried him into the corner and kicked him. I don't know if he got the ball. I think the ref didn't give a foul, but he set a marker down. And that just showed the difference between the two sides and why Marco Silva felt the need to make those changes. Because it did improve Fulham, but the match was only going one way. And it's full credit to Nuno and to Forest, because I remember the Villa game away, and it was a similar performance to that, but the other way around, in that Forest got nowhere near it. And we didn't make any changes, I don't think, until half-time. But we could have done. And Marco Silva did. I really think he's a top manager. But I don't blame him, because there was a clear difference between both sides, and Forest were, if it had kept it that way, we could have been 4 or 5 up at half time.
There was 3 minutes added on at the end of that first half, and 2 minutes into that added time, Forest made it 3-0, and it was a deserved goal for Gibbs-White. Talk us through this one, George. Again, a lovely move.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous, isn't it? Well, honestly, I mean, he'd done it with Elanga, didn't he? The little 1-2. And he drives this, and he was all over the pitch, wasn't he? He was all over the pitch.
Yeah.
This time he was on the right with Elanga, did the 1-2 and played Elanga in. This time he's on the left wing. He's on halfway. He drives forward towards the edge of the box from the left-hand side, gets his head up, and Danilo is in the middle screaming for the ball. And it's the clearest pass to Danilo, who takes it towards the edge of the box. And the whole stadium, I'm not kidding you, the whole stadium shouted shoot. And Danilo, edge of the box, you're thinking, rifles us into the top corner and goes away with his famous pistol celebration. But instead, he sees Gibbs-White, who did so well to carry on his run and go with him. And the Fulham players as well were thinking he's going to shoot. So Danilo just laid it back, kissed it into Morgan Gibbs-White, who took a touch and composedly slotted it into the corner. And I think that's one of the most deserved goals that I've ever seen. That Morgan Gibbs-White first half was one of the best individual displays that I think a Forest player has ever provided in my lifetime going to Forest. It was aided by the selection because he had 2 wingers either side of him. And like I say, he could have came off the left. He could have came from the right. He had the ball deep. But honestly, the Pavella ball through for Hudson-Odoi for his goal, the flicks over his head, the 1-2s, he was all over the pitch. He absolutely relishes being the main man. And he just shows why he plays every game, most of every game if possible, why he's our number 10 and why we're so lucky to have a player like him, because he's everything that you want to see in a player.
He was absolutely superb, wasn't he? And I think as well that first half was the best 45 minutes of football that Forest have produced since returning to the Premier League. Mm-hmm. It was
it's up there.
near to a complete performance as you could ask for. Yeah,
100%. And not just the fact that we're 3-0 up, but we're 3, it could have been 4, it could have been 5. And Fulham had a Sales save, and that was about it. And that, like I say, that is how I love to see Forest playing. Because when we play like that, when we're on form, we showed it at Newcastle, we showed it against Man United, we can blow any team away with our football. And just lastly on Gibbs-White, he's been good this season, especially since Nunes came in, but we've been crying for him to add to his numbers, particularly in goals. I mean, he's got 15 assists now since he signed, which is more than, I think only 6 players in the league have got more than him, I saw. But one or 2 goals this season wasn't enough. And I think he would be probably the first to say that. But the fact that he was able to add to that goal tally, and it was a penalty, his other goal. So his first goal from out of play, I'm pretty sure I might be wrong on that. I really hope this is a chance for him to kick on and for the team to kick on, because that 45 minutes, like you say, was one of the best I've ever seen Forest play. And if we keep playing like that towards the end of the season, then we'll stay up at a canter.
The 1865 Match Report.
At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. Whether it's a walk-off grand slam or a base hit to center field. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
We're pleased to announce that this episode of 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast, is sponsored by Greene King Sport, where football is more than a game. Greene King Sport venues are showing every single televised Forest fixture over the 23-24 season. And with more than 900 sports pubs across the UK, it doesn't matter where you're based, you can catch every single minute of the action. If you download the Green King Sport app, you won't just get 10% off all drinks anytime there's a match on the TV, but this month there's also free Guinness to be won and the chance to win one of 6 holidays. And you'll be supporting us here at 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. Now it's back to your podcast.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
So Forest led 3-0 at half-time, perfect position, and really we couldn't have asked for much more. I don't know about you, George, there was always a little niggle in the back of my mind knowing Forest that even 3-0 isn't always a safe scoreline, and Fulham 4 minutes into the second half did get a goal back, and surprise, surprise, it came from a corner, Forest's kryptonite this season. It was swung in by Pereira, and Toplis and George was up the highest, and he planted a header, far corner. Sells couldn't get to it, and it was 3-1. And it did make for a nervy second half, but you wanted to just pick up on the defending for this corner.
Right, I'll just make clear, this is the only bit of negativity that is going to be inserted in this pod, because apart from that, Forest were fantastic. But once again, the set-piece defending reared its ugly head, and it is abysmal defending. First of all, Toplis and George, who's probably the tallest player on the pitch, is being marked by Morgan Gibbs-White. So I don't know who has allowed that to happen, but that cannot happen. So Adebayo gets to the ball far easily. And I'm not blaming Morgan for that, because there's no way that he can compete with Adebayo. If it's on the floor, he'll skin him every day of the week. But in the air, from a corner that's on his head, he's never going to get anywhere near that. And as the goal goes into the back post, you see Chris Wood and Ryan Yates both stood at the back post on the line doing absolutely nothing. Why are they not the players to be in front of Adebayo and head it away? And Fulham had 8 corners, and Forest just looked clueless. I mean, I don't think it was from a corner, but another chance that Sells made a brilliant save from Adebayo again. But in the air, it's just ridiculous, and it's such a repeated theme. And if Forest didn't take their chances tonight, or last night rather, and had lost 1-0 to a set-piece goal, that would have been awful. So this set-piece defending has to improve, because it's costing us every day of the week. And if we can sort that out, then we'll be a far better team. But I can't even think of another team in the league that doesn't even put a player on the post. That's standard. You learn that from when you're in under 9s, under 10s. I used to do it because I played up front. I'd come back. For attacking corners, I'd stand on the keeper. Defending corners, I'd stand on the post. And that was instilled to you at an early age. Why a Premier League football team is not putting anyone on the post and putting their 2 tallest players on the line is absolutely beyond me. And they need to sort that out, because it is getting ridiculous how many set-piece goals we're conceding. That is the moan over. Let's get back to the positivity.
Indeed. And just on that as well, Forest seem to defend okay from open play. Mm-hmm. We don't get carved open too much, and we look reasonably solid. It is just balls in the air from set pieces that is the real danger, and that's where a lot of our conceded goals are coming from. And a good example of Forest defending was on the hour mark when Willian cut in from the left-hand side. Omobamidele gets in, makes a block to stop the shot coming in, and then Tom Kearney's shot is also blocked. I don't know if that was Murillo, but it was somebody else diving in, and there was a real commitment there to stop that ball getting on target. There's a real difference in those two areas of Forest defence.
Yeah, there's a real difference in the two halves as well. I mean, we'd have loved to have seen the free-flowing attacking football we saw in the first half, but I don't think it was always going to continue, and it wasn't as cutthroat, but I think it was what we needed. You think back to the defensive displays last season with Worrell and Felipe playing, from this period to the end of the season. And it was bodies on the line. It was everything is on the line. We're going to give everything to the cause, keep everything out. And it had that feel to it. And it had that feel that, the nerves of Forest defending the league were always there, because we know what Forest are like. And it had been so Forest. You saw what Fulham did to Sheffield United at the weekend. It had been so Forest just to have done that and rolled over as soon as they conceded that goal. But if you looked at the game as a neutral without those feelings, I don't think you'd have been worried about Forest conceding, because they, like you said, they got in the way of everything. They had some big saves from Sells. They can rely on him, and it's nice to have a goalkeeper we can rely on. They hit the bar once. That was, I think, from a corner. What a surprise! But on the whole of it, it was a really strong defensive performance that was always going to come after a first half as momentum based and as free flowing as that first half was. but we also, and we'll get onto it, created chances and were able to get up the pitch. And that's a big difference, because there's been times this season where we've defended well, but not been able to get out. And then the ball just keeps coming back and keeps coming back. But no, we could defend well, put bodies on the line, get in the way, and then get up the pitch and relieve that pressure. And I think that was what was good about that second half as well.
Yeah, and Forest did have a couple of chances, as you say, one of which came just a couple of minutes later. Gibbs-White had the ball on the right wing. He played it back to Nico Williams, who was forward. Williams cut inside, had a left-footed shot. It was deflected onto the crossbar. And then the ball dropped to Danilo. He had a first-time effort, and that was blocked by his own teammate, Chris Wood. But again, Forest going really close to scoring. And it'd be nice to see Nico back on the score sheet as well. It's been a while since his last Forest goal, but he's playing so well of late.
Oh, yeah, he's been absolutely fabulous. And when you're picking out man of the match for last night, Nico's name probably doesn't come up because we've just come to expect that performance from him. And to say he started the season behind Aina, behind Montiel, behind loads, he was fourth choice and didn't really get much of a game until actually the reverse Fulham game when we lost 5-0. I mean, Aina was honking that day. And I remember Williams came in on that Wolves game, and him and Toffolo came in and just, it was exactly what we wanted as fullbacks. And since then, he's not really looked back. And, him on the score sheet would have been exactly what we want, because we've seen his recent performances. He's been unreal. Then he went to Wales and scored that amazing free kick. And I think he should be on set pieces. There's a valid argument for that. But if Nico got a goal to round off his recent performances and Forest's performance under the City Ground Lights last night, it'd have been the cherry on the icing that was already on top of the cake. So unfortunately, that hit the bar and it didn't go in. But it didn't put a dampener on the night for Forest, and how much of a good night he had once again, because it was, I can't really describe it or say any new words for it, because it was just the standard performance that we expect from him now. And it's so nice to have in our defence, especially with Aina back as well, players that we can rely on that are going to be at least a 7 or 8 out of 10 every week. And we've been crying out for consistency at defence all season. AFCON disrupted it when we were just sort of getting it. And with Williams now, with Aina and Murillo, you've got 3 players there that I think are nailed on starters. And, for a defence and a goalkeeper, that's exactly what you want.
And just mentioning the goalkeeper, Matt Sells made a big save from Adebayo. It was a cross from the right-hand side, Adama Traore, towards the back post. Adebayo got up the highest, and Sells did well to, on the stretch, palm the ball wide and make a big save. And yeah, that would have made it 3-2 otherwise, and that would have really made it for a nervy last 20 minutes or so for Forest. So yeah, it's good to see Sells. These last couple of games, he's really, I think, gone up in his performances and made some big saves for us.
Yeah, it's nice to have someone you can rely on. And I went to watch England and Belgium at Wembley, and Sells obviously played for them. And you could see why he's Belgium's number one, because on the ball, he's so calm, he's so composed, and playing with those international players that, are a step above the Forest players. He looked at home in a team like that. And there was a bit of a question mark because there was a few decent keepers on the bench. But, it's nice to have someone we can rely on, because there was a point earlier on in the season, and I said this before we recorded, that every game there'd be a goalkeeper mistake that we'd pinpoint. But it seems now every game we're pinpointing a good save made from a goalkeeper. And he commands his area. We mentioned some of the crosses, but like I say, Fulham had 8 corners. Most of them, Sells defended quite well, and he commands his area. I think he's got the respect of his defenders. And we've seen now, even little things like from goal kicks, we play it short now, and we have the confidence that we can play it short. We've got confidence in Sells and Omobamidele and Murillo that we're going to play it out, and we're going to be fine doing that. We're not going to make blunders like we did playing out against Man United and Spurs. So to have someone in goal between the posts that you can rely on, I think is what we've cried out for. And it's third time lucky. I think Forest, if we'd have had Sells all season, we would be at least 5 points better off and not even discussing relegation. So that's the biggest credit I think I can give to him, because we can rely on him, and we don't talk about him unless it's for good things. And I've been waiting for this moment all season.
And that £5 million fee looks like a snip, doesn't it?
It does.
Couple of changes Forest made in that second half. So Divock Origi came on for Callum Hudson-Odoi, who'd put in a real shift. Gio Reyna then came on for Gibbs-White. Again, he put in such a shift. He was outstanding on the night. And as Forest were closing the game out in the last 10 minutes, we had Harry Toffolo on for Ola Aina. And Nicholas Dominguez on for Anthony Elanga. Forest had one last chance in injury time, and it was play between Rayner and Wood, and then the ball was fed out by Wood to Divock Origi down the right-hand side. He's at an angle, he cuts in, and he shoots just wide of the far post, does everything right in terms of getting the ball low and across the goalkeeper, but he just can't get that final finish, can he, at the moment?
Now, I don't know how many chances he wants. I mean, you'd have known it was Forest night if Divock Origi scored, wouldn't you? And he had a similar chance a few minutes earlier, and he nearly scored a wonder goal. I think he did a step over on the right, cut inside and blasted it with his left foot towards the top corner as well. So
yeah,
he's had a couple of chances there. And on the substitutions, I think Nuno, I've been critical of him, like I said, but I think he got everything spot on last night. Dominguez to bring on was perfect. I think he's just a general in that midfield, and he can play on that wing, but he just calmed it down and allowed us to coast through to injury time. And Rayner coming on, it's nice to have that option with Gio Reyna. We're all sort of wondering why is he not getting a game, but he did well against Palace. He came on, he quickened the play, and now I've got the option to take Morgan off because he did it against Brighton and Luton, taking Morgan off. I had to put Kouyaté and then Dominguez on instead of it. But it's nice to be able to look for somebody that's similar, that's not going to change the complete style of Forest, but we can also wrap him in cotton wool, because Gibbs-White showed last night how important he is. And that I think if we can keep him and Chris Wood fit and towards the end of the season, then we're going to be going in the right direction. So, yeah, if Divock Origi had scored that, you'd have known it was United, because I think he's going to need a tap in from 2 yards out that he's right in the centre of the goal to score at the minute. And I don't want to be too harsh because we've won and it's a great night. So, yeah.
A great win for Forest, and it's a win that moves them 3 points away from the relegation zone. What's crucial as well, George, is in 2 games they've wiped out that 4-point deduction.
Yeah,
which I think psychologically is a massive boost for Forest, and also teams around them now don't have that advantage anymore of having pulled Forest back in. They've opened up that gap to Luton in the bottom 3 again. Obviously, we're recording this before Luton play at Arsenal tonight, but from Forest's point of view, the table looks a lot healthier.
Yeah. Yeah, and I heard, I don't know if it's right or not, that the club actually found out from the Premier League their point deduction on the Friday before Luton, but didn't publish it on the Monday because they didn't want the players to know. I mean, these few games show, why did we not tell the players? If we'd have told the players before that Luton game, look, we're now a few points behind Luton, go and make it up. I think they'd have done it. I think we'd have won. I think that would have incentivised the manager as well. And it's a shame that we didn't do that, because this reaction has been perfect. I mean, like I mentioned at the top of the pod, the Palace game on Saturday is everything. Sorry, the performance yesterday night was everything we should have seen on Saturday, and maybe it's the lights, maybe it's the occasion and the situation Forest are in. And 4 points from these 2 games, I think, was what we'd be targeting. I don't think Forest could have said in any confidence we're going to win them both. I mean, we should have been at home, but given recent performances, you can't expect that. But it's very nice to have that buffer back, to have made those points up, and to be in a comfortable position. You look at where we'd be now without the deduction, and that's a team that's not really in danger of relegation. So if we can keep that confidence going, I just want to finally mention the midfield, because I think Yates and Danilo complemented each other so well last night. Yates showed why every single manager continues to pick him and why he's our club captain. He regained the ball and retained the ball so much. And, it might not be always the forward pass or the over-the-top switch of play, but he gets rid of it quickly. And I think that's why Forest were happy to sell someone like Aura Mangala, because he's a bit slower on the ball, whereas Yates will get it and immediately look to offload it, whether it's sideways, backwards or forwards. He quickens the play up. And I think that's a trait that Nuno really likes in a midfielder. And obviously, he just galvanises the troops so much. And then Danilo was the perfect partner for Yates, because we know Yates is a bit more defensive and conservative, but Danilo has the capability to drive forward, but also knows that midfield position. So when we need to defend, he knows where to be. But then he gets Forest on the front foot, he drives forward, he presses. And, given his recent displays, I mean, he's been honking all year, to be perfectly honest with you. I remember that Bristol game where he had that free kick towards the edge of the game to win it, and I think it went over the stand nearly. But that performance from Danilo was fantastic. And I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but we've only won games under Nuno that Danilo started. And I think you can see that, because that midfield was perfect and it allowed Gibbs-White to just have the freedom of Nottingham to do what he does.
Has Nuno found his best team based on that performance and the personnel that he put out and the reaction that the team gave him last night?
I think given the fact that this is the best performance, you can say that. There's not many players in there. If Felipe had played last night and done well, that's not a consistent choice because of his age. But Omobamidele, I think, is one. I think so, yeah. I think the front four, Gibbs-White, Hudson-Odoi, Elanga and Wood, is the quartet that we've all wanted to see, and that one or two of them haven't really got into the side. There was a point where, for some reason, we were playing neither of them, of the wingers, that is. So I think those four are certainly shoo-ins now towards the end of the season. And if they're all fit, they'll start for me, because Elanga thrives, I think, with someone else the other side. Because if he's the only winger, direct attacking player, then I think he can fade in games. But if he's got someone like Hudson-Odoi, who's also an option, then Elanga can save his burst of pace. And actually, he's unlucky last night because he was against Anthony Robinson, who's probably the only player on the pitch that could have kept pace with him. If he's on the other side, and Hudson-Odoi works better on the left, but if he's on the other side, I think he could have been equally as a menace as Hudson-Odoi was. I think that's settled. The midfield two, Yates and Danilo, I think Danilo's the one you could change. Dominguez is not much between it. Maybe he's slightly more defensive, so you might choose Danilo for a home game and Dominguez for an away game. But either one of those two I'd be happy with. Yates, for me, starts every game. Not many fans think that. I think he is 50-50. Either people start him every week or people want him nowhere near the starting 11. For me, I'd start him every week because I think he's just everything you'd want in a Forest midfielder. And I've said this before, and this probably won't go down well, but if Ryan Yates played for England in the Euros and we had Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham ahead of him, we'd win it, I'm telling you, because Rice for England plays like Yates does for England, and he doesn't play like Rice plays for Arsenal. And if you had Ryan Yates mopping up in front of that back four, Bellingham and Rice pulling the strings, we would walk home with the Euros. And that back four, like I mentioned, Sells is head and shoulders with everyone. I think the fullbacks, Toffolo did well, but Ayan is just a more mature player. He's got more about him. He can go inside as well as outside. Defensively, he's absolutely solid. And I spoke about Williams earlier in the show. He's not droppable. Obviously, we know Murillo is fantastic and did well with his feet. And, Omobamidele, unless we're playing a side that are just going to lump it long, I think it's a solid choice. I mean, for me, if Bolly's fit, he plays every week instead of Omobamidele. But I think he's a very useful second choice. So, if this side was unchanged for the game at the weekend against Tottenham, I wouldn't be too opposed to it, particularly because of the way Tottenham attack and they have pace and they play the sort of high line. I think Omobamidele would play well against that. So, Nuno, I think this is as settled as the lineup is going to be, to answer your question in a very long form.
And a final word as well for the referee, Michael Oliver, because you thought he had a good performance, didn't you?
Yeah, we're very quick, and rightly so, over the season to criticise referees because we've had some absolute stinkers against us. But Michael Oliver, I thought, refereed it yesterday absolutely fabulously. There was no real controversial decisions. There was an appeal for a penalty, I think, when I think Origi played it through to Williams. I mean, it's a poor ball because Williams had acres of space down the right, and if the ball was right, it'd have been in for a shot, but it was just wide, forced him wide, and he went down. That's not a penalty. But I thought he did well. He made calls early. The ball would go out of play, and there was no doubt as to which way he was giving it. He didn't lose control of the game, and there's a reason why Michael Oliver is one of the best referees in Europe. I think he showed that last night, and that should be something that people should touch on as well. But let's give a final word for Forest. Keep that performance up. Come on, you Reds.
Absolutely. A great performance, a great night at the City Ground, and a match that everybody came away from full of, I think, excitement and enjoyment for what they'd seen over that 90 minutes, and the brilliance of Morgan Gibbs-White, and a great team performance backing it up as well. So Forest go to Tottenham next. That's on Sunday evening, 6 p.m. kickoff. We will be back with you after that match with our report, so do make sure you join us then. In the meantime, thank you, George, and thank you, listener, for joining us. We'll leave our match report there. See you next time.
Social Podcast Network.
At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every home run, every hit, every inning, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today and get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, must be physically located in Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply.